What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my Week 3 NCAA football power rankings. Let's jump into it here. Dropping from the rankings, you got three teams: NC State, Georgia Tech, and Kansas. After they all suffer some losses, they've fallen from the rankings as we have, some teams that are ranked still undefeated and some others receiving votes. We even got some teams that are undefeated in here, like Illinois, Boston College, and NIU. NIU with a huge upset win on the road at Notre Dame. Didn't crack my top 25. I need one more week to see that it wasn't just a fluke win and Notre Dame played bad. If they can get a win next week, they're going to be in my top 25. 25 is Iowa. They lose heartbreaker to Iowa State and they've lost two straight at home to Iowa State in the rivalry. McNamara didn't play well, but Caleb Johnson carried this team. Hopefully they can rebound this week against Troy with their stingy defense. 24 is Iowa State after upsetting Iowa on the road. They have a bye this week, so they are 2-0 to start the year. And maybe Campbell is gonna, get those entertaining offers for some head coaching jobs if he puts Iowa State here back on the map. It was pretty remarkable what they did to storm back in the second half against a great Iowa defense on the road. And you can thank Rocco Beck and Jalen Knoll for that, really putting this team in a good position to win and obviously kicking the game-winning field goal to make it happen. Notre Dame fallen out of the top 10 all the way to 23. Ugly, ugly, ugly loss against Northern Illinois at home. How do you lose to Northern Illinois at home by 2 and then the week before go on the road to College Station and win that one? Very questionable play here from Notre Dame. Riley Leonard struggled. Jeremiah Love had a decent game, but this team can still make the playoff. Let's say they go 10-2. Their only losses to Northern Illinois, and let's say USC at the end of the year. You're not going to really look at that week 2 loss against Northern Illinois very seriously if, there's a 9-3 team sitting there. So Notre Dame, they still got a good chance to get in the playoff. They just got to rebound this week. 22, you got Clemson. Clemson is 66-20 winners against App State at home. Great bounce back week for Cade Klubnik with 5 touchdowns. And you can see everyone there had a great week as well. Now they get NC State at home, and both those teams right now 1-1 is a big matchup to start the year. Not only for ACC play, but for both these teams as they're 1-1. No team wants to have two losses, and I don't think either of those teams plan to have two losses after week 3, so make sure you tune into that one. 21, you got Nebraska, and they're joining the top 25 for the first time this year. Big win at home against Colorado. Played Northern Iowa this week, should beat them, but Dylan Raiola is the real deal. But they relied on the running back committee here of Dowdle and Johnson as Colorado just couldn't stop them. But Raiola, I expect him to have a big week this week against Northern Iowa. And this Cornhusker team, I picked them to go 11-1, and right now it's looking pretty good. Syracuse is also joining the ranking after their win at home against Georgia Tech. I was on Syracuse all week, thought they would win this game at home. Kyle McCord's one of the better quarterbacks in this conference, and he proved it. 4 touchdowns. Pena, 2 of them to him, and Gadsden, 2 to him as well. They get Stanford at home. It should be an easier test than Georgia Tech was. And this team in Syracuse, there's a team that needs to step up in Clemson's absence in the ACC instead of Miami and FSU. Miami's going to be playing one of these teams here could be Syracuse at the end of the year, or it could be Louisville at 19. 2-0, get Georgia Tech at home, and they're looking for a bounce back win after that tough loss to Syracuse. But this team, I think they could be very good as well. And it's going to be a 3-horse race, in my opinion, of Louisville, Miami, and Syracuse for the ACC when it's all said and done. 18 is LSU. Not much to talk about here. Struggled in the first half, but figured it out in the second and pulled away from Nicholls State. Nussmeier, great performance, only 10 incompletions, 6 touchdowns. Hopefully they can get it right and right the ship here for the first game in SEC play. 17 is Arizona, and Arizona, ugly win, but a win is a win this early in the season, and you get rewarded with your first Big 12 game at K-State, and K-State here is at 16, and they, escaped against Tulane on the road, got lucky with that scoop and score, and then the late interception at the end. So both these teams, I think it'll be a big game for them. I think you might see one of these teams jump into the top 10 because it's a ranked matchup for both these teams, right in the middle teens. But hey, I give the advantage to Kansas State because they just went into a tough place to play, won that game. Avery Johnson played well. DJ Giddens looked unstoppable, and the defense showed up when it mattered most. So I like Kansas State early in this one. Not saying I want to pick them, but if you look at on paper, I think you got to lean Kansas State. 15, Oklahoma. Another team with an ugly win. Their schedule's pretty tough when they get to SEC play, and honestly, I might put them on upset alert this week at home against Tulane after what we just saw against Kansas State. Jackson Arnold kind of struggled, and I think Brent Venables could be on the hot seat in a few weeks. 14 is Oklahoma State, and I'm moving up two rankings, even with a double overtime win against Arkansas at home. Yeah, it wasn't the best performance, but hey, they even covered the spread in this one and got the win at home. Now they go on the road at Tulsa, which, is kind of like their Super Bowl, so that'll be a tough place to play. But Oklahoma State, I think they're starting to get all the kinks out, as that Arkansas game was kind of a mini conference game was what it felt like, going back and forth and playing really good football. 13 is my Michigan Wolverines, and, honestly, kind of expected something like this to happen, but, didn't actually really realize it until it happened. They just weren't there against Texas, plain and simple. The touchdown at the end, I don't even want to count that. They scored 6 points against Texas, and Texas did whatever they wanted on offense to Michigan's defense, and it was vice versa. Texas's defense stifled Michigan's offense. The only bright spot is Colston Loveland had a decent game. Obviously he's all reliable, but hopefully they can rebound this week against Arkansas State. 12 is USC, and man, this team looks really good. They haven't allowed, obviously they didn't allow a point this week against Utah State at home. Obviously, it's not one of the better teams, but a shutout is a shutout. Miller Moss looks great. Their running back duo of Marks and Joyner looks great, and they get Michigan in the big house after this week, so they'll get another tough test early in the season. 11's Miami, and blowout win against Florida A&M. Probably another blowout win against Ball State. Cam Ward putting on a show, and just expect it yet again next week. Starting the top 10, you got Penn State. They're falling two here. It was a very concerning win at home. 7-point win after they're favored by 34.5, I think it was, or 37, something like that. And Penn State, here we go again. They're gonna probably go 9-3, 10-2, maybe make the playoff, because this team, if they play like that against Bowling Green, I don't want to see what they're gonna play against Big Ten opponents. At 9, you got Utah. Kind of an all right win for them. Really struggled in the second half, but Cam Rising left with a hand injury. Not sure of the severity of it yet. That would be a big blow if he's done for a little while. But they get Utah State, who obviously USC just blew out, so they should win that game no matter who's at quarterback. But it's definitely a concern moving forward for Utah. 8 are the Tennessee Volunteers. Man, this team on fire. Nico Imalava, I think I pronounced it right. He's just an absolute baller. True freshman, comes in, 3 total touchdowns, 276 total yards, but those 2 interceptions, trying to do too much late. I think he was, feeling really good at that point. But Dylan Sampson looks like a monster right now. So I think the Vols have really put the SEC on notice. And man, it might be them and Georgia in the SEC championship if play continues like this. And I say that because Alabama, they're not moving up or down. It was a win against USF, but this team was only up 21-16 with 6 minutes to go in the fourth, and then put it on them when it was pretty much over already. Milrow had a good game, but really just couldn't get anything moving until that fourth quarter. And now they go into Wisconsin. They're going to jump around and make it tough for Bama. Falling out of my top 5 is Oregon as they land at 6. Escape at home against Boise State. I told you last week that plus 20 for Boise State was a lock. Boise State loves to score points, and they got possibly one of the best running backs in the country. And Oregon didn't play well that first week, and here they escaped with a win. They go on the road to Oregon State, should beat them. But this offense started to figure things out when it mattered the most. And I think Oregon, you could see a big performance from them next week as they're finally going to piece it together. At 5, I got Missouri, and maybe it's a little high for this Missouri team, but I love Missouri. They got a tough test this week against Boston College at home, though. It's going to be a great out-of-conference matchup, and if they can win that one, that's just going to confirm that they are a top 5 team in the SEC this year. And Brady Cook, all right game, nothing crazy. Did it more with his legs than his arm in this one. But once again, if they can beat Boston College at home, solidified top 5 team heading into SEC play. 4 is Ohio State. 2-0 against the MAC this year, outscored them 108-6 in 2 games, blew out Western Michigan. Not really much to say. Judkins and Henderson, 4 total touchdowns between them as they head into a bye, pretty much where we thought they would be. 3 is Ole Miss, and same thing, kind of same boat actually as Ohio State. Great game, blowout. Jackson Dart set an SEC record for 24 straight completions, and a little bit more of a challenge this week at Wake Forest, but they just lost to Virginia. So not really too much big of a difference there. At 2 is Texas, and well, Texas just blew up my Wolverines on the road in the big house. Defense looked awesome. Quinn Ewers, great, great performance there. Jaden Blue hurt early on, but then came back later in the game, had a good game. And that Gunnar Helm, he is going to be a problem for anybody trying to line up against him. He, absolute behemoth of a male, and it looks like he was all reliable there for Quinn Ewers. So if they can somehow figure out a way to stop Isaiah Bond and Gunnar Helm, whoever that defense is, I don't know. I think that might be the only way you can stop Texas. And at 1, of course, you got Georgia. Blew out FCS school, Tennessee Tech. But I didn't cover the 55.5 if you took them. I don't think they care, but maybe Vegas doesn't know that Georgia isn't that good yet. They'll get better later this year, and I think they're going to show it this week in their first SEC game against Kentucky. Carson Beck, 5 touchdowns, only 18 completions. I mean, that just shows you how easy this game was for Georgia. But of course, they're at number 1 to finish the rankings. And that's going to be it for this week's rankings. Check back next week to see if your team's in the top 25 or if they fell out. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.